I'm Sarah, and this is the story of how my family tried to take everything from me. On Christmas Eve, my sister Callie discovered I had $15 million, and within minutes, my entire family turned on me. They called me selfish, ungrateful, a terrible daughter for not handing over my hard-earned money. But that was just the beginning. The lies started stacking up. The manipulation, the betrayal, it ran deeper than I ever imagined. They forged my signature, stole from my accounts, even tried to have me declared mentally unfit just to take control of what I built. And worst of all, they never saw anything wrong with it. I thought I was prepared for their greed, but nothing could have prepared me for what came next. The scent of cinnamon and roasted turkey filled the air as I stepped into my parents' house. Christmas Eve in Chicago had always been the same: twinkling lights, over-decorated halls, and forced smiles masking the undercurrent of tension that simmered beneath the surface. I adjusted my coat, shaking off the biting winter cold as I walked toward the living room. The place was warm, cozy, yet suffocating in a way I couldn't quite describe. My mother, Eleanor, had gone all out this year. Gold-trimmed napkins, a lavishly set dining table, and a ridiculously oversized Christmas tree that almost reached the ceiling. Callie, my younger sister, was already basking in the attention as I entered. Dressed in a designer red dress, she leaned dramatically against the fireplace, her laughter echoing through the room. "Oh my God, you wouldn't believe the deal I got on this bag," she gushed, holding up her newest luxury purchase. "It was on sale for $1,800. Can you believe that steal?" I forced a polite smile. Same old Callie, always flaunting, always needing the spotlight. "Hey, Sarah, glad you could make it," my father, Gregory, said, without looking up from his bourbon. "Of course," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. The night went as expected. Callie dominated the conversation. Mother fussed over her, and Dad sat back, sipping his drink, offering occasional nods of approval. I had long learned to blend into the background, but tonight there was something different. Callie's eyes kept darting toward my purse, her gaze lingering on my laptop bag. There was an unsettling eagerness in her expression, like a predator waiting for the right moment to pounce. I should have known. The disaster unfolded while I was in the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of wine. A shriek rang through the house, high-pitched and theatrical. "Oh my God!" Callie's voice cut through the chatter, stopping every conversation dead in its tracks. I froze, dread curling in my stomach like a living thing. $15 million! Are you freaking kidding me? Silence fell. I stepped into the living room, my pulse hammering. All eyes were on Callie, who stood in the center of the room, clutching my laptop in her manicured hands. The screen was angled toward the guests, displaying a number I had never intended anyone in this house to see. "Tell me this is a joke," she demanded, her voice laced with something far more dangerous than disbelief. Entitlement. I felt my blood turn to ice. The room erupted into chaos. My mother gasped, pressing a hand to her chest as if she were about to faint. My father's grip on his drink tightened, his eyes narrowing. The guests murmured in hushed, scandalized tones. "You've been sitting on millions while Mom and Dad are struggling?" Callie's voice was shrill, accusatory. My throat was dry. "That's my money, Callie, my business, my work." But she wasn't listening. "You let us suffer!" Eleanor wailed, playing her role to perfection. "We've been drowning in bills, and you never once thought to help us?" Gregory exhaled sharply, shaking his head in disappointment. "We are your parents, Sarah. We raised you, and you just... What? Keep this fortune to yourself?" I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palm. My parents had never struggled a day in their lives. Dad had his pension, and Mom had inherited a hefty sum from Grandma years ago. The truth was, their struggles were Callie's reckless spending, her endless shopping sprees, and their insistence on funding her every whim. I had built my business from nothing. I had worked late nights, skipped vacations, poured my soul into every deal, every investment. They never once asked how I was doing. Only now that they knew, did they care. Callie's smirk was barely concealed behind her feigned outrage. "And you weren't even going to tell us?" I exhaled sharply. "I didn't think I needed to. My success isn't your paycheck." The words landed like a slap. Eleanor gasped, clutching at her pearl necklace. "You ungrateful child?" Gregory's jaw tightened. "Family takes care of each other, Sarah." The guilt tripping, the manipulation. It was all so predictable, so painfully rehearsed. "If you really loved us," my mother added, voice trembling for dramatic effect, "you would share your success with your family." Something in me snapped. I felt the heat rise to my face, my pulse pounding in my ears. All these years, being ignored, being the afterthought, the backup plan while Callie basked in their attention. And now that I was worth something, they suddenly remembered I existed. I clenched my jaw, biting back the retort burning on my tongue. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of an outburst. Not yet. Callie was watching me closely, waiting for me to cave. Not this time. I pushed back my chair, standing slowly. "Excuse me." And with that, I walked out of the room, leaving behind the shocked silence, the whispers, the murmurs. I wasn't going to let them break me, not yet. But this was far from over. I barely made it to the hallway before I heard footsteps behind me. "Sarah, sweetheart." My mother's voice was suddenly gentle, too soft, too calculated. "Don't walk away like this." I exhaled slowly, pressing my fingers to my temples before turning around. Eleanor stood there, hands clasped together like a grieving widow, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Callie hovered behind her, arms crossed, biting her lip, playing the part of the wounded sister. My father lingered near the dining table, swirling the last of his bourbon in his glass, his face unreadable. The rest of the family was still whispering in the living room, exchanging scandalized glances, but they were pretending not to listen. "We need to talk," Eleanor continued, stepping closer. "Let's not do this in front of everyone." I clenched my jaw. I already knew where this was going. She led me into the sitting room, a space that was meant to be for guests, but was rarely used. Callie and Gregory followed, closing the door behind them. The moment we were all inside, the facade cracked. Eleanor sighed dramatically, sinking onto the couch. "Sarah, darling, we're not asking for all your money. Just a little something, a family support fund." I scoffed. "A what?" Gregory cleared his throat, trying to sound reasonable. "You know, something fair. Maybe set aside a few million so we can all feel secure." My stomach twisted. They actually believed this was a rational request. "You mean so Callie can keep shopping and taking luxury vacations?" I snapped, crossing my arms. Callie gasped, her expression flickering between shock and insult. "Wow, Sarah, I didn't know you thought so little of me." I let out a bitter laugh. "I know you, Callie." Eleanor's face fell, her disappointment carefully rehearsed. "This isn't about Callie. It's about family, about us supporting each other." I stared at her, searching for any sign of sincerity. "Funny. You never seemed too worried about supporting me when I was struggling." She flinched, but recovered quickly, shaking her head. "That's not fair. We always did what we could." "Really? Where were you when I was working 3 jobs in college? When I had to take out loans just to survive? Where were you then?" Eleanor opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Gregory sighed, rubbing his temples. "We're not trying to start a fight here. But think about it, Sarah. You have $15 million. You could change our lives overnight." Callie nodded eagerly. "Exactly! You wouldn't even miss it." I felt my nails dig into my palm. "And if I say no?" Silence. Eleanor blinked, as if she hadn't considered that possibility. Gregory's grip on his glass tightened. Callie tilted her head, studying me like I was a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. Finally, my mother let out a long breath. "We just don't understand why you'd want to hoard all of that money when your family, your blood, could use some help." I let out a humorless laugh. Oh, so now we're talking about blood. Where was that blood when I was invisible for the last 15 years? Eleanor's lips pressed into a thin line. You're being cruel. No, Mom. I'm being honest. The tension in the room was suffocating, but I didn't back down. This wasn't just about money. This was about control. They never cared about my success until they realized it could benefit them. Gregory set his glass down with a thud. You need to think about this. I already have. I turned toward the door. And my answer is no. Eleanor made a wounded noise. Sarah! I walked out, my heart hammering. I expected them to follow me, to drag this out, but they didn't. They just sat there, stunned, as if they truly couldn't believe I was refusing them. Later that night, as I stood in the kitchen refilling my glass of wine, Callie appeared at my side. She sighed, leaning against the counter like we were just two sisters catching up. Look, I'm sorry, okay? I arched an eyebrow. For what exactly? She hesitated, chewing on her lip. For how things went down earlier. I got caught up in the moment. I was jealous. I studied her carefully. Her voice was soft, her eyes a little glassy, just enough to appear genuine. I don't want us to fight, she continued. You're my big sister. I want to fix things. I almost believed her. Then she pulled out her phone. If you really want to prove you don't hate me, she said lightly, just help me out a little. My stomach dropped. She turned the screen toward me, a banking app, a joint account ready for a transfer. Not a lot, just something to get me back on my feet. There it was. The mask slipping, the performance ending. I set my wine glass down. No. Her face twisted in frustration. Oh, come on, Sarah. You owe me. I let out a slow breath. Owe you for what, exactly? She scoffed, rolling her eyes. For everything. Do you even know how hard it was for me growing up in your shadow, always being compared to you? I blinked. Are you actually serious right now? Callie's crocodile tears vanished in an instant. You are so selfish. I laughed, an actual full-bodied laugh. Wow, you really had me there for a second. Her jaw clenched. Good night, Callie. I turned my back to her, grabbing my purse. She let out an irritated noise, then stomped out of the kitchen, her heels clicking angrily against the tile. But I knew she wasn't done yet. I stayed in the kitchen for a few more moments, listening to the sound of Callie's angry footsteps retreating down the hall. I exhaled, pressing my fingers to my temples. The night was dragging, each passing hour making this house feel less like home and more like a battlefield. The air smelled of cinnamon and pine, but it did nothing to ease the knot tightening in my stomach. Something was wrong, more than just their greed, more than the blatant manipulation. They weren't just reacting tonight, this was planned. I walked back into the living room, where the remnants of the Christmas gathering were still scattered. Half-empty glasses of wine, wrapping paper torn open in a flurry of greed, the flickering glow of Christmas lights casting long, eerie shadows against the walls. I sank into the armchair near the fireplace, rubbing my temples. The weight of their accusations still clung to me. You let us struggle. If you really loved us, you would share. We are your family. I had spent years convincing myself that I had simply outgrown my family, that our distance was a natural result of adulthood. But tonight had proven something darker. They had never truly cared about me, only what I could give them. And yet, something still didn't sit right. Why had my parents switched so quickly from outrage to negotiation? They should have been furious, humiliated, insulted that I hadn't told them about my wealth. Instead, they had pivoted into damage control like seasoned politicians. I lifted my glass of wine to my lips, but froze. From the kitchen, hushed voices drifted into the living room. I set my glass down and strained to listen. My mother, speaking softly, but with a sharpness that made my stomach turn. We'll have to move quickly. A pause. A second voice, my father. His tone was low, controlled. She's being difficult. You should have waited, Eleanor. Another pause. She wasn't supposed to find out this way, but it doesn't change anything. Then I heard the words that made my breath catch. The lawyer is ready. A cold chill ran down my spine. Financial guardianship. Trust fund. Callie will handle the signatures. My hands curled into fists. I stood, moving toward the kitchen. I knew they would hear me if I got too close, but I had heard enough. This wasn't just guilt-tripping anymore. This was a planned financial takeover. I moved carefully through the hallway toward my mother's study. The door was slightly ajar, and the lamp inside cast a dim golden glow onto the carpet. I stepped inside, scanning the room. And then I saw it. A stack of papers, neatly arranged on her desk. My name was on them. I swallowed hard, stepping closer. The words at the top of the page made my stomach lurch. Vaughn Family Trust Agreement. I skimmed through the legal jargon, my pulse pounding. Trust managers. Eleanor Vaughn, Callie Vaughn. Beneficiary, Sarah Vaughn. I flipped through the next page, my hands trembling. At the bottom, next to a space labeled Signature, there was a neatly drawn line. I had never seen this document before, but they were planning for me to sign it. And if I didn't? My stomach twisted. They were going to find a way to take control of my assets, with or without my consent. The words from the kitchen rang in my ears. The lawyer is ready. I gritted my teeth, rage bubbling under my skin. They weren't just asking me to share. They were trying to take everything. A movement at the door made me spin around. Gregory stood there, frozen. His eyes flickered to the papers in my hand, and in that split second, I saw it. The guilt. The realization that I had caught them too soon. I held up the papers, my voice dangerously calm. What? The hell is this? He didn't answer at first, just let out a long sigh, rubbing his temples like I was the problem. It's for the best, sweetheart, he finally said, stepping inside. You don't understand what's good for you. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. The best? For who? Gregory closed the door behind him. You're young. You don't know how unpredictable money can be. I narrowed my eyes. That's interesting, because I built my entire career on knowing exactly how to manage it. His jaw tightened, but before he could respond, a soft click sounded behind him. Eleanor stepped into the room, her expression unreadable. You weren't supposed to see that yet. I stared at her, searching for some sign that this was a mistake, that she had simply made a poor choice, that she wasn't actively conspiring against me. But there was nothing. No remorse. No regret. Just calculation. I swallowed down the lump rising in my throat. How long have you been planning this? Eleanor's expression didn't waver. This isn't about taking from you, Sarah. It's about protecting you. I clenched my jaw. Right. Because nothing says protection like secretly trying to steal legal control over my assets. Eleanor sighed, tilting her head slightly. You're too emotional about this, I laughed. Too emotional? Callie's voice drifted from the hallway. She's always been paranoid. It's exhausting. I turned sharply to see her standing just outside the door, arms crossed, looking thoroughly unimpressed. She smirked. Honestly, Sarah, why are you making this such a big deal? It's not like we were going to leave you with nothing. I gripped the papers tighter, my hands shaking. There was no way out of this conversation that wouldn't turn into a full-blown war. So I made a decision. I walked past Gregory, past Eleanor, past Callie. I pushed open the study door and stepped out into the hallway. Callie laughed behind me. Oh, don't be so dramatic. I stopped in my tracks, turned slightly. Dramatic? I met her gaze, my own calm and steady. This is the last time you try to steal from me. And with that, I left them standing there, my mind already forming the next move. If they wanted a fight, I was ready to give them one. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the signatures on that trust agreement, the carefully orchestrated betrayal hiding beneath my mother's saccharine voice, Callie's smug little smirk when she thought she had won. But this wasn't over. I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating aggressively on my nightstand. I groaned, rolling over, my head pounding from the exhaustion of the night before. The screen was filled with missed calls, dozens of them, messages, voicemails, notifications piling up like a digital avalanche. Something was wrong. I sat up, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. The pit in my stomach grew as I swiped through my notifications. Imogen Clark, 17 missed calls, Imogen Clark. Incoming call. I barely had time to answer before her panicked voice hit me. You need to check Callie's Instagram, now! My stomach dropped. What did she do? I asked, already pulling up the app, dreading the answer. Imogen hesitated. It's bad, Sarah. She really went for it. I clicked on Callie's profile, and there it was. A long, teary-eyed post, the kind designed to rake in as much sympathy as possible. I never wanted to do this, but I can't stay silent anymore. My heart is broken. My own sister, my own blood, has abandoned us in our time of need. We never asked for millions, never demanded anything. We only wanted love and support. But money changes people. I just wish my sister could remember where she came from. My breath hitched. Oh, she was good. The post had already racked up thousands of likes, comments flooding in faster than I could scroll. She sounds selfish AF. If I had millions, my family wouldn't have to ask. Shame on her. Callie, stay strong, girl. You don't need toxic people in your life, even if they're family. Damn, some people get rich and forget who helped them get there. My fingers tightened around the phone as I scrolled through the replies. Then I saw the worst part. Eleanor Vaughn, my own mother, had left a comment. We never asked for much, just a little love and support. It breaks my heart that my own daughter would turn her back on us. I felt the betrayal like a slap. Not just Callie, Mom too. It wasn't enough to ambush me in person, to steal my documents and forge legal agreements. Now they wanted the world to turn against me too. And it was working. By noon, it was everywhere. Callie had tagged influencers, gossip accounts, even a few journalists. The greedy millionaire sister was trending. I scrolled through article after article, each more sensationalized than the last. Meet Sarah Vaughn, the self-made millionaire who refuses to support her struggling family. Exposed. How one woman abandoned her family after making millions. Callie Vaughn speaks out. I just want my sister back. I threw my phone onto the counter, my pulse hammering in my ears. This wasn't just a petty social media fight anymore. This was war. I paced my condo, rage simmering beneath my skin. They had dragged me through the dirt for money, turned me into a villain overnight. My business emails were flooded with clients asking for clarification. A few had already pulled out of deals. The damage wasn't just personal, it was professional. My phone buzzed again. Imogen. Tell me you're not ignoring this, she said the second I picked up. I'm aware. My voice was tight. Then do something, she snapped. Silence is basically an admission of guilt. You need to get ahead of this before it spirals. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. I don't do online fights, Immy. Well, congratulations, she shot back. You're in one. I exhaled slowly. And what do you suggest? Control the narrative. Tell your side. Make a statement. I stared out the window, the Chicago skyline stretching before me. I didn't want to do this, but I knew she was right. I sat at my desk, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I started typing. I have always valued my privacy, but in light of the misinformation being spread, I feel the need to address this personally. I love my family, but the situation is far more complicated than what has been presented online. I have never abandoned them, nor have I refused to support them. The truth, however, is something I am not yet ready to fully discuss. But know this, I will not be bullied, guilt-tripped, or publicly shamed into decisions that impact my future. Family is important, but so are boundaries. I hesitated for only a second before hitting post. It took minutes before the backlash hit. Wow, what a PR move. Fake rich people are all the same. Boundaries is just a fancy way of saying you don't want to share, huh? Your family raised you, they deserve a cut. Period. But there were also voices of reason. She doesn't owe them a damn thing. It's always the struggling family members who feel entitled to someone else's hard work. Sarah doesn't have to set herself on fire to keep them warm. The tide wasn't fully turning, but it wasn't drowning me anymore either. Then my phone rang. I already knew who it was before I even looked at the screen. Mom. I took a slow breath. The war wasn't just online anymore. It was about to get personal. I stared at the screen, my mother's name flashing like a warning. The last time I'd let them corner me, I walked away, barely keeping my sanity intact. This time, I wasn't in the mood to play their game. I let the call go to voicemail. Seconds later, another call. Then a text. Mom. We need to talk, Sarah. Don't shut us out. Mom. I know you saw Callie's post. This is getting out of hand. Call me. Mom. It doesn't have to be this way. I clenched my jaw and turned my phone off. It was already this way, and they were the ones who made it so. A few days passed. The online mess hadn't fully died down, but I'd managed to control some of the damage. My clients weren't thrilled with the attention, but they were reassured by my statement. Still, the tension hadn't left me. I felt it lingering like a shadow, waiting for the next move. That move came Thursday morning, at my office. I was sitting in my glass-walled corner office downtown, skimming through emails, when Imogen burst in. She didn't knock. That alone told me something was wrong. They're here, she said out of breath. I frowned. Who? She didn't need to answer. I already knew. I stood, straightening my blazer. Did they have an appointment? Imogen's lips pressed into a thin line. They said they did. Of course they did. I stepped out of my office and into the reception area, where Gregory, Eleanor, and Callie were sitting as if this was a friendly drop-in. Callie was scrolling through her phone, legs crossed, looking utterly unbothered. My father was casually flipping through a magazine, as if he wasn't plotting ways to control my life. My mother. She was sitting there with an expression carefully crafted for maximum pity. She looked up, a soft, motherly smile in place. Sierra, sweetheart. I exhaled slowly. What are you doing here? Gregory stood, adjusting his suit jacket. We just want to talk. No pressure. I folded my arms. That's funny, because the last time you wanted to talk, you were trying to steal my assets. Callie clicked her tongue. God, Sierra, are you ever going to let that go? I turned my glare on her. No. Eleanor sighed, as if I was exhausting her. Let's not do this here. Let's go somewhere private. I laughed, low and humorless. Not a chance. Gregory motioned to my office. Then at least hear us out. That's all we ask. I should have told them to leave right then and there, but I needed to hear what they were planning. So I turned to Imogen. Give us 10 minutes. If they're not gone by then, call security. Callie snorted. Oh, come on, Sarah. You're not really gonna act like we're trespassers. I met her eyes, deadpan. You are trespassers. And with that, I walked into my office, fully aware that I was inviting a pack of wolves into my den. Eleanor sat first, smoothing her dress, eyes darting around like she was mentally cataloging everything I owned. Callie made herself at home, lounging in the chair like she belonged there. Gregory, as always, played the role of the reasonable one. He was the first to speak. You've been through a lot this week, he said, voice even. We just want to help. I leaned back, unimpressed. That's new. Since when have you ever wanted to help me? Eleanor gave me a wounded look. Sierra, don't be like this. I ignored her and turned to Gregory. Say what you came to say. He nodded and reached into his briefcase, sliding a document across the desk. I didn't pick it up. What is this? I asked. Eleanor smiled, too sweet. Just something to ease your burden. I finally glanced down. Financial Management Assistance Agreement. I laughed, sharp and cold. You want me to sign over my company? Gregory's expression didn't change. Of course not. Callie smirked. We just want to help manage things, as a family. I exhaled through my nose, looking at the document again. They had seriously put together a whole legal agreement to take control of my finances. After everything, It wasn't just about the money anymore. They wanted power. I picked up the document, flipping through the pages, before pushing it back across the desk. Get out! Eleanor stiffened. Syrah, don't be hasty. This is what's best for everyone. For you, I corrected. This is what's best for you. Gregory sighed like I was a child throwing a tantrum. You think you're untouchable, don't you? That got my attention. I tilted my head. Come again? Callie leaned forward, resting her elbows on my desk. If you're not with us, you're against us. I clenched my jaw. I don't negotiate with scammers. Callie's eyes darkened. Careful, Sarah. I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. Get out, now. Eleanor's expression shifted instantly. The warmth drained from her eyes, replaced with something sharp, cold. She stood, smoothing her dress, then met my gaze with a slow smile. You're making a big mistake, Syrah. Gregory nodded in agreement. We're still family, don't forget that. Callie didn't say a word, just smirked, like she already knew something I didn't. I watched them walk out, my pulse pounding. I had seen that look before. It meant trouble was coming. And this time, I wasn't backing down. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. My mother's calculated pity, Gregory's smug condescension, Callie's smirk, the look she always gave me when she thought she'd won. But this time, she hadn't won. I wouldn't let her. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my phone vibrating aggressively on the nightstand. Imogen Clark, 5 missed calls. Imogen Clark, incoming call, I answered groggily. Immy? Her voice was sharp, urgent. Check your bank account. I sat up fast, my pulse spiking. What? Just do it. I threw the blankets off and grabbed my laptop from the desk, fingers shaking as I logged in. And then I saw it. $250,000. Gone. I sucked in a breath. My stomach twisted violently. Callie. There was no other explanation. I scrolled through the transaction details. The money had been transferred to a new account under my name. Except, I hadn't opened any new accounts. My heart pounded. She had forged my authorization. This wasn't manipulation. This wasn't gaslighting. This was theft. I was out of my condo within 15 minutes, moving on autopilot as I drove through the city. I barely registered the lights flashing past, barely felt the steering wheel beneath my fingers. My entire body was buzzing with fury, cold and sharp. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about power, about control, and I had let them have it for far too long. I slammed my car into park outside an office building, barely stopping before I stalked inside. A receptionist looked up, startled. Ms. Vaughn? I need to see Dominic Hale, I said tightly. Dominic Hale was not the kind of man you called unless you were serious about burning bridges. He was my former mentor, an old-school power player, someone who had built his name on ruining people who thought they were untouchable. And today? I was handing him my family on a silver platter. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with a slow, amused smile. Well, well, if it isn't my favorite former protégé. I dropped into the chair opposite him, sliding the bank statements across the desk. I need to take my family down. Dominic's smile widened slightly. He picked up the papers, scanning them, then whistled. That's bold, even for them. Callie forged my signature, I said flatly. She stole from me. His eyebrows lifted slightly. And let me guess, this isn't the worst of it? I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. It's not. I pulled out another stack of documents, the ones I had found in my mother's study, the preliminary paperwork she had filed, the paperwork that would allow her to legally claim that I was mentally unfit to manage my own finances. Dominic's expression shifted. The amusement vanished, replaced by something far sharper. He read the pages carefully. When he finished, he placed them down and met my gaze. You know what this means, don't you? He said quietly. I nodded once. They weren't just trying to guilt me into giving them money. They were trying to take everything. Dominic tapped the papers. They planned this for months, maybe longer. I swallowed hard. I shouldn't have been surprised, but somehow I still was. Dominic leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. So, do you want to play nice? His lips curled slightly. Or do you want to destroy them? I met his eyes, my pulse steady. I want them to regret ever thinking they could control me. Dominic grinned. Now that's what I like to hear. I barely had time to breathe. The rage from my meeting with Dominic was still fresh, still simmering beneath my skin like a fire I couldn't put out. I had spent the night sifting through legal documents, tracing every fraudulent move my family had made, my hands shaking with exhaustion and fury. But when my phone rang the next morning, I realized I had underestimated them. Ms. Vaughn, this is James Larkin from First National Bank. We need to discuss the 6-figure loan you recently took out. I froze. What loan? There was a brief hesitation. The $350,000 business loan secured under your name and credit. The first payment is due in 30 days. I shot up from my chair, knocking over my coffee. I never took out a loan. Silence. Ms. Vaughn, Larkin finally said, voice cautious. The paperwork is signed and processed. We have your signature on file. I already knew what I would find before I even opened the email. And there it was. A perfect forgery of my name. The air left my lungs. Callie. She had used my company's credibility to take out a massive loan, likely betting that I wouldn't notice, or that I wouldn't dare report her. She had taken our feud to another level. I gripped my phone tighter. I need every single document you have on this loan. Every form. Every signature. Larkin cleared his throat. We'd be happy to provide you with that. But if there's an issue with this transaction, I'd advise you to resolve it quickly. Non-payment on this loan will have severe consequences for your credit and I'll resolve it. My voice was like steel. I hung up. This wasn't just fraud. This was war. By the time I reached my office, Imogen was already on high alert. She met me at the door, clutching her tablet, her eyes wide. You know, I nodded sharply. How long have you known? I found out this morning. I was about to call you when the bank did. She glanced at her screen. She was smart about it. She used her business degree for something, I guess. She structured the loan under your corporate entity, leveraging its assets to make it look like a perfectly normal transaction. I clenched my jaw. Callie had always been a leech, but this was another level of insanity. Imogen's voice dropped. Sarah, if you don't handle this fast, it could wreck your credit, your business reputation. I inhaled slowly, forcing my hands to unclench. She thinks she's untouchable. She's banking on you not turning her in. I met Imogen's gaze. She bet wrong. The knock on my door came at exactly the wrong time. I had just finished speaking with Dominic, preparing the fraud charges, when the sharp bang, bang, bang echoed through my condo. I already had a bad feeling. I opened the door. A man in a dark suit stood there, holding a thick envelope. Debt collector. Ms. Vaughn? I exhaled slowly. What can I do for you? He gave me a tight smile. We're here to discuss payment options before legal action is pursued. I didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't panic the way Callie had probably assumed I would. Instead, I smiled, cold, dangerous. Oh, you'll get your money. The man hesitated. But not from me. I pulled out my phone and dialed Dominic. File the fraud charges. My tires screeched against the pavement as I pulled up to my parents' house. I wasn't waiting this time. I wasn't giving them another second to plot, to twist things, to try and manipulate their way out. I stormed through the front door, documents in hand. Eleanor and Gregory were in the kitchen, frozen mid-conversation. And then there was Callie. She was curled up on the couch, sipping a ridiculously overpriced latte, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a care in the world. Until she saw me. Her face went pale. I threw the bank statements onto the coffee table. What did you do, Callie? She blinked. Sarah, what the hell? I cut her off. Don't. Don't play dumb. You took out a $350,000 loan under my name. You forged my signature. Her mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. Eleanor stood abruptly. Sarah, I think you're overreacting. I turned to her, eyes blazing. Overreacting? I let out a sharp laugh. Your daughter committed felony fraud and I'm overreacting? Callie finally found her voice. Okay, you need to calm down. I whirled on her. I need to calm down. You stole from me, Callie. She scoffed, but her hands were trembling now. I was going to pay it back. I laughed, loud, sharp, cutting. With what? Your influencer sponsorships? Your $10 Target hauls that you pretend are Chanel? Her nostrils flared. You don't understand how hard things have been for me. I stared at her, utterly disgusted. You don't understand how hard things have been for you? I took a slow, measured step forward. You stole from your own sister. You put my business at risk. You forged legal documents. Callie's breath hitched. I didn't think you'd press charges. I leaned in, my voice ice cold. Well, guess what, Callie? I am. Her face crumbled. Sarah, please. Eleanor stepped forward, voice dripping with desperation. She's your sister. Family forgives. I turned to her, my patience completely gone. Funny. That's what you said when you tried to steal control of my assets. When you tried to have me declared unfit. Eleanor's face twitched. Sarah! I cut her off. Enough. I'm done. You have 1 hour to get Callie a lawyer, because I'm pressing charges. And this time? I met Callie's tear-streaked gaze. You don't get to cry your way out of this. A month had passed. A month since I stood in that courtroom and watched the legal system do what my parents never had. Hold Callie accountable. She took a plea deal, avoided jail. But her life, the one she had carefully constructed with lies and manipulation, it crumbled. She lost her influencer brand deals. Her credit was in ruins. And, perhaps most poetic of all, the bank seized her car. For the first time in years, I could breathe. No more Sunday dinners filled with passive-aggressive remarks. No more gaslighting. No more stolen money. No more watching my family twist reality to suit their needs. I was finally free. I was sitting in my new office, high above Chicago, scanning through contracts, when Imogen strolled in, holding 2 lattes. She placed one on my desk. Decaf. Because I know you haven't been sleeping. I smirked, taking a sip. You're terrifyingly observant. She shrugged. It's why you pay me. Then she leaned against my desk, arms crossed. So, how does it feel? Winning? I thought about it for a second. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like relief. It feels peaceful, I admitted. Imogen smiled knowingly. About damn time. I set my cup down, rolling my shoulders. All right, what's next? She grinned. Dominic's waiting in the conference room, and before you ask, yes, he brought whiskey. I laughed. For the first time in years, I actually laughed. I was halfway through reviewing a new partnership agreement when my phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. Please meet me. I need to talk. I stared at the message, something cold curling in my stomach. I didn't need to ask who it was. I should have ignored it, but some small masochistic part of me wanted to see. So I went. The cafe was almost empty when I walked in. I spotted Callie immediately. She wasn't wearing designer. No perfect makeup, no expensive jewelry. Her hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, her face bare, shadows under her eyes. She looked human. I slid into the seat across from her, keeping my expression neutral. You wanted to talk. She flinched at my tone. Sarah, She inhaled sharply, rubbing her hands together, like she was trying to hold herself together. I lost everything. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I was stupid. I know that now. I said nothing. She looked up at me, her eyes wet, filled with something close to real regret. I don't know how to fix this. I tilted my head. Fix what? She swallowed. Us. There was a time when hearing that would have cracked something inside me. But now I felt nothing. Not hate, not anger, not even pity, just detachment. Callie reached across the table, her fingers barely brushing mine. Please, Sarah. I pulled away gently. Some things can't be fixed, Callie. Tears slipped down her face. I don't have anyone else. I exhaled slowly, then stood. I pulled a 20 from my wallet, dropping it on the table, enough to cover her coffee. That's not my problem anymore. Then I walked away. And this time, I didn't look back. That night, I sat in my apartment, sipping wine, staring out at the city. My phone buzzed. Dominic, dinner tomorrow? I smiled. For once, I was excited about the future. As I sit here now, looking back at everything I've been through, I realize one thing. Family isn't about blood. It's about respect. It's about boundaries. For years, I believed that if I gave enough, if I forgave enough, if I sacrificed enough, my family would love me the way I deserved. But here's the truth. Some people only love you when you're easy to control. It took losing everything and rebuilding from scratch to understand that I never owed them my success, my money, or my loyalty. I owed myself the chance to live without their weight dragging me down. And maybe you're watching this right now, feeling the same way. Maybe you have family members who manipulate, who guilt you into believing their problems are yours to fix. But let me tell you this. You do not have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Your success, it's yours. Your peace, it's yours. Your happiness, it belongs to you, not to the people who only show up when they want something. So tell me, have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved for the sake of your own sanity? Let me know in the comments. Drop a 1 if this story resonated with you, or tell me where you're watching from. And if you want more real, raw stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next, because sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is finally let go.